Never push this button. Don't touch this AutoScale button. Never push this button. Hey everybody, it's Steve from Scram Speed here, and we've got another 6014 MSD carbureted LS video for you today. Today we're going to be talking about the data acquisition or data logging features that are included with the 6014 box. I'm a big fan of using data logging and that sort of thing to analyze your performance, analyze what's going on with your motor, make changes as need be, and it can save you a whole lot of hassle and really make your combination the best it can be. This is going to be a two-part video. The first video is we're going to just go over the basic settings, and then I'm going to walk you through the real-time data monitor. And then the next time we're going to get into the MSD review software. We're actually going to do some logs, and we're going to look at them, and I'm going to show you exactly what you do to make your car the best it can be. So let's get going. You access the data acquisition on the MSD in two different places. The first is this drop-down menu that says data acquisition. There's a couple of settings in here. We are going to come back to this later. But to start out with, we're going to go and change a bunch of the settings, which are, you look in the left and right arrows up here, and you go all the way over to the right-hand side and click data acquisition. The first thing you're going to see here is a screen of the settings, and a lot of these seem really obvious, but there are a couple of tricks, so I'll go quickly, but might be worth paying attention to. Enabled and disabled is the top line item, so obviously it's not going to do anything if you don't have it enabled. The second one is this RPM trigger to start recording above 500 RPM. In this case, you want to kind of scenario set what these are. For example, this would be like anytime I would turn this car on, it idles at about 1,000. So anytime I would turn the car on, it would turn the data logger on. That would be great if I was doing drivability, something like I was doing, map sensor or something like that. But if I was going down the track, I would want to set that higher. I would want to set it probably above the idle RPM pretty significantly so it doesn't record me backing off the trailer or driving around in the pits. Okay, there's activate with launch input. This is a trigger that anytime you put 12 volts to the two-step wire, it'll turn the data logger on if this is set to enabled. And then two, if you don't have a two-step or you don't have a trans brake, you can still activate this. Just have a momentary switch hooked up to 12 volts that you can hit, and and you apply 12 volts to the wire, it'll turn the data logger on. You want to have it to be a momentary switch, because otherwise it's a toggle switch. You flip it, then your two-step RPM limit is going to be active all the time. So that's an option. Hope that's handy for someone. Stop recording below 100 RPM in this case would again be, I want the data logger to not turn off until I shut the car off, because that's the only time it's going to be below 100 RPM. And then you've got this thing, which is a max recording time, which is the maximum is 300. So if you're doing drivability stuff, it's 5 minutes. You would have to remember every 5 minutes or so, you're going to have to stop and turn the data logger back on if you want to keep logging. But if I was going to go down the racetrack, I would have these set very differently. One thing that is important to keep in mind, actually two things, is this is not an either or, right? So it doesn't turn the data logger on when you go 500 RPM or above, or when you have when you activate the two-step. This is one or the other, and in my experience, if you have this enabled, it doesn't even look at this, right? So if you're doing drivability stuff and you're not going to be touching the two-step, you want to turn this to off, right? If you are going down the drag strip, I would set this to enabled, and then just to be safe, I would set this to say 1500 RPM. Nah, make it 2000. I set it to 2000 RPM because I just don't want any extraneous data logs. Stop recording below. In that case, I would want it to be above idle RPM, but not real far above. So I would set it to 1500 RPM. That'll turn the data logger off. Basically, you bang the gears, you make your pass, you let off the gas at the end of the track. As soon as you get down to idle, it'll shut the data logger off, and you're not wasting data logging space going back to the pits, and it makes your logs a lot shorter and cleaner to look at. So this part of it is an either or. it will either, when you go to 1500 RPM, and then if you're never under 1500 RPM for 300 seconds, then this would turn it off. So these are either or, these are not. Okay, so then the next little tab over here is channels, and this is important as well. So these are the data that is going to be available in your data log. Right now, you're going to see next time when we get into the MSD review software and actually looking at some data logs, you're going to see that you can turn these on and off individually in the MSD review so that they're visible or not. In my opinion, it's better to just leave all these selected. That way, if for some reason you choose to look at that data later, like you're reviewing data logs and you're trying to figure out when your alternator problem started or something, you can go back and select ignition voltage, and you could look at them through all those passes even if you'd never looked at that before. Whereas if this was not checked because you weren't planning to log it right away, you wouldn't be able to bring up that data. So just select all of them, and then that way you'll have all your data if you want it. That brings us to the last part of this video, which is going to be the real-time monitor, and I'll show you what the features of that are. This is your data monitor screen. The most important thing to say about this is not for using when you're driving down the road. Don't try to drive your car around other people and try to look at the screen at the same time. It's a bad deal, completely irresponsible. Steve said, "I told you so," if you try that and anything happens. This is a really good feature if you got a buddy who can look at the screen while you're driving, or if you've got a situation like you're on the dyno. I use this on the dyno all the time. On the dyno, the car is strapped to the ground. I don't have to worry about wiping out a bus full of nuns or something like that when I'm on the dyno. This, again, has a set of channels over here on the right-hand side, and it displays a real-time readout in a numerical format of what the graph is showing. Each one of these has 2 values that you can configure, right? And if you right-click on them, not left-click, right-click on them, it'll show them. They are limits or the range of the item or color. When you bring this up, all the data is in default in white. But if you're logging more than one parameter and they're all white, you can't tell them apart. So they do give you the option to set the color. Limits is the range that it is listed on the screen here. The default is it just looks at whatever the highest range it's captured, and the lowest range, it makes for horribly ugly screen. So don't do that. Instead, go over to this fixed value and pick ranges on either side of the data you expect to see. You don't want to capture just that. You want to have it, for example, I'm not going to see 20 volts here, but I've got it set to 20, and if I saw 10 volts, the MSD would just shut off because it won't run at 10 volts. But I'm going to be able to, that means I'm going to be able to capture all of it, and it's going to be in a relatively compact area on the screen when I start the car. The other thing you can set is the color, right? You just bring this up, and then you just pick one of these colors, and whichever one tickles your fancy, I guess, and then that will be the color that represents that. And it's real easy to tell, so you select map, right? This is your manifold absolute pressure sensor, right? And it will make this side of the screen the color. It makes the, the map indication. It changes the range to the range that you have selected for the map, and it also makes it reminds you what color it is. So when you're looking across, you can see what color it is. So kind of handy shorthand. So like I said, set your limits for each one of these based on what you're doing. Keep in mind they are unit sensitive. If you have metric, KPA for your map, for example, you would not want this value, and it does not automatically change like a lot of the values do in the software. It does not automatically change if you change which units are displaying. So if you got metric or standard, it'll be whatever you set it at, right? So something important to keep in mind. It's a little peculiarity that can throw you off. I'm going to go ahead and start the car so you guys can see what that looks like. So I'll try to talk over it without getting too loud. So here's what it looks like when the data is actually live. And you can kind of change where things display on the screen because you know what the range it's going to be in, and you can move it. Say, for example, I know this sitting here at idle is making about 8, 9, 10 inches of vacuum. I could go in, I could set the limit, to start at, say, 6. And you see how it moves it down there? So you can kind of, if your data logs are getting sloppy and you're getting confused, you can kind of configure the screen to where you want it. I could do the same thing here with engine speed and ignition voltage because they kind of occupy the same space on the screen. So, but the other kind that's kind of neat is, you know, check out this yellow for ignition voltage. When you have it highlighted here, see how it gets so much brighter? So that's nice. So it makes it a lot easier to look at. So it makes it brighter. It makes it this color so you remember which one you're looking at. You know, so some kind of user-friendly features. The remaining features on this are pretty obvious. Play, pause, and stop. And then, you know, you can stop it at any time. And then there's this horizontal scroll speed here, right? The default it comes to is 50 seconds, which, as you can see, is completely worthless. So what I always do is, and you got 0.5 seconds, which is just way too fast, right? You can't really tell much. So what I always do is I set it for either 2 or 5, depending on what I'm doing. That gives you plenty of time to follow it as it goes along, you know, and this is a good way to pick up, you know, weird peculiarities, right? For example, you can see your RPM, you can see your ignition timing. It's like, well, I have my ignition timing set to a flat 20 at that RPM. Why is it jumping around like that? Well, in this case, it's jumping around like that because I have the idle timing control set, and it's doing that on purpose to try to level out the idle. A couple of things I wanted to mention here that I kind of forgot. You may notice this is different than it was a second ago. It's because the laptop died in the middle of shooting the video. So we'll go over it real quick, though. So the thing I forgot to mention was that this data isn't saved when you move away from this or whatever. You don't get to keep it unless you hit File, Export, and then it'll export to a CSV, which you can open with Google Sheets or Excel. The thing is it's a comma-separated field, so all you get is the numerical values. It's not great, but then again, this isn't intended kind of for saving and looking at later. This is intended for just a real-time data monitor. When we want to save stuff and look at it later, we'll use the data logger and the MSD review software in the next video. I noticed also I didn't go into a lot of difference about what these buttons do. So here it is under play. You got it going. Everything's good. You hit pause. It stops what's happening so you can look at it more closely. You hit play, it starts back up again. Now, if you hit stop, it stops just like it does when you hit pause, but it also gets rid of all this data so that when you hit play again, you've got to basically start over. So, important distinction there. Something else to know, never push this button. See what I just did? I accidentally pushed it. So what that did was it reset all of the defaults in these. When I did that, right? So it just reset them to the beginning. So if you do like I did just now and you push that button, then you get to go and redo all of this stuff. So again, don't push that even by accident. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. That's all I've got for this video. I hope that you guys find it useful. If there's something I didn't explain or if you have questions about it, please leave me a comment. And I do read all the comments. I will do my very best to answer all of them. If there's enough people asking for something, I'll make another video. If you like MSD 6014s, you like carburetors, you like LSs, or you like some, just cars in general, please give our channel a like and a subscribe. It'll help us bring you more of this kind of content. Something I wanted to bring to your attention is we have these cool Carburetor LS t-shirts on our website. Check them out. People seem to like them. Carbureted LSX, the future of old school. You can find them on our website. I'll include a comment in the description that gives a link. Be sure to check us out next time when we go over the other half of this video, which is the MSD review. And we're going to actually do some data logging. I'll probably do some dyno pulls. But anyways, I hope to see you guys next time. And thanks very much for watching.